Okay, this is 132 and 133. I think it's pretty straightforward to combine these because it's operations with complex numbers. 132 is add, subtract. 133 is multiplying using FOIL. This is exactly what we did last week with polynomials. Remember? So the only difference is with polynomials we had, the x plus 2, plus, 3x plus 5. And when we added them, what did we do with our terms? Well, with even our parentheses, yeah?
We combine like terms.
Just combine like terms. Because it's addition, there's nothing to distribute into the second expression, so we would just make a long line of terms, combine like terms. We would end up with, 4x plus 7. Is everyone feeling okay with what we did last week like that, right? I felt like that was a pretty straightforward one, I hope. So this is going to be no different. The only changes, now we're going to deal with complex numbers with the terms including I. So let's make sure that we remember that from yesterday. Remember that if I have I to the first power, I have both I or root negative 1. I to the second is negative 1. I to the third is negative I to the fourth is 1. I to the fifth is the same as I. I to the sixth is negative 1. I to the seventh, negative I to the eighth, 1. I to the ninth, root negative 1. I to the 10th, 11th, 12th, it keeps going, right? Okay. So just want to review, how did we find I to the 23rd? Which is that, which term of I is that equivalent to? Sean?
I to the third.
I to the third. Is it pretty quick? We can do this now? Maybe. If not, I take 23. I divide by 4. 5 gets me to 20. 3 is my remainder. So I know that because the remainder is 3. I to the 23rd is equivalent to I to the third, which is equal to negative I. You see? We're just going to have to be able to do that pretty quick for some of these. Okay. I to the 202nd. Which number close to that do you know is divisible by 4? 200, right? So 200, what would the remainder be if, let's see, divide 50 times 4 is 200. Remainder is 2. So I know that this is equivalent to I to the second, and that's negative 1. Okay, just reviewed yesterday. Make sure that we're good with I, with our imaginary number. Okay, same as last week. That is the nice part of this lesson, kind of matches. It almost repeats what we did last week just with our I values in here. So if I'm looking here and it is add, subtract, this one's add. So when I have add, all I need to do is drop the parentheses and combine. That's all I need to do. You could think of, well, I'm going to just think I'm always going to distribute. You could think that. That's helpful to just say, in my mind, I always distribute, but when you distribute a positive, you don't change any of the signs of those terms, so it just ends up being this long line. I want you to combine those, put it in the complex number form, with the real number first. So go ahead and combine them real quick. So we're going to combine 4 and 2, and then positive 3i, negative 4i. Straightforward. 4 plus 2 is 6. Positive 3, negative 4 is negative I. And that's my answer in combining those two expressions. Jaden, question?
Would you write it as 6 minus I or 6 minus the square root of negative?
I would keep it in terms of I. Because we want it in complex number form. Complex number includes the imaginary component. Where if it's the square root of negative 1, there's nothing imaginary yet with that, right? We haven't substituted in an I. So we're going to keep it in this form. Good question. Good clarifier. So what is the difference with subtraction compared to that first problem? What do I need to do now that's different? Distribute it, right? There's nothing else that is different from last week. We distribute the negative, you get negative 6 minus 5i. Combine them, you're done. Combine them real quick. Positive 5, negative 6. Negative I, negative 5i. So it looks like we're going to have negative 1 minus what? 6i. Okay. Thumbs up, sideways, down, add, subtract, no problem. Okay. Now, over here, we just have to remember FOIL. FOIL. First, then outer, inner, last. So remember that if FOIL is not the way you think of it, it really is just distributing that first term and then the second term to the other expression. Okay, so let's just do them one at a time. Okay, 2 times 5, first, 10. 2 times 2i, 4i. 3i times 5, 15i. 3i times 2i, I'm going to leave it like this because this is where some of the work is going to come about. Some of our work is going to... Something kind of new. This is slightly new. So I'm going to combine what I can first. I have 10 plus 19i. And then I want to deal with this now. 3i times 2i. I want you to do that problem. 3i times 2i. Go ahead and do that on your own, and then I want to check with our partners here. Check with your neighbor. 3i times 2i. In this case, Jaden, we would reduce it to the... You're going to end up using the wheel to reduce that number down. You'll see when you get there. Check with your neighbor. If you're not sure, now is a chance to double check it. Good. Good. Easy, right? Easy? Not sure. Okay. This might be the crux. Once you get past this crux, the hard part is the crux, then I think that this is going to all combine pretty quick. So who can help me out with this? What should I multiply first? That's the easy part. Yeah, Jenia? No. Is that right?
No.
Jenna? What do you think?
No.
Oh, Naya.
Yeah.
Short, Naya. Okay.
For the 3i times that.
For the...
Wait, what?
How am I going to do this part?
6i squared, and then that
Good.
turns into, like, this I squared turns into -1.
Good.
And it would be -6.
-6. Okay. You see how we're just going to combine it. So in essence, perfect, I functions in the same way as a variable. Okay. We don't solve for I because we actually know the value of it, but when we do have these special values, the letter E, I, even to some extent pi, you could manipulate it and think of it almost like a variable. Okay. Can't combine it with our whole numbers, but we can at least deal with it. I to the second power is -1. Now we're good. Okay, so I'm just going to erase this part. Put -1, 6. And then what are the last terms that I can combine? 4 plus 19i. Okay. All right, this last example we have. It's the last example, last chance here. Start to finish, go ahead and start it out. I'm going to call on people. I'm going to call on some folks. You can check your neighbor, but I'm going to call on folks to help me work it out. Check the neighbor if you're confused or they look a little confused. Look at their face. Are they confused? Just look at their face.
Oh, not the
All right, last chance. Check with your neighbor. All right. Okay. So we're going to use FOIL. So Christopher, help me out with our first step using FOIL with this one here. What's the first step you're approaching the problem?
Since it's fun, probably already what's like 10 times negative 2.
Good. First, and we get negative 20. Perfect. Okay. Elizabeth, what is next?
10 times 3i.
And what do you get with that? Perfect. Samira, what is next?
After that, I multiply negative 22i times negative 2.
And you got? 4i. Okay. Geneva, what is next?
Negative 2i times 3i.
Good. I'm going to leave that for a second because we're going to have to work this out. You know, if you kind of do it on the side, kind of annotate it on the side so you see that process, it might help you. So then you don't have to look in the problem and see and remember that. So think about how you're studying you're setting yourself up to study well for the quiz. Think about that. Think that. All right, so we're going to combine what we can. Negative 20 plus 34i. And then we have negative 2i times 3i. Okay, let's see. Daniel, help me out with this. Negative 2i and 3i.
So it'd be negative 6i squared.
Mm-hmm. I squared is equal to?
Negative 1.
Negative 1. So we got negative 6 times negative 1.
6.
6. Perfect. Let me go ahead and erase this. It's positive 6, so remember, you go back in there. You got to make it a positive 6. Last step. Underwater 20 feet. Go up 6 feet, you're underwater? Oh, yeah. Negative 14 plus 34i. I hope it's kind of like, you know, slightly less of a mystery. Because I has some rules to it, but how it functions, you just got to remember a couple of those rules and deal with it just like last week. Okay? So let's see. Thumbs up, sideways down for this lesson. How do we feel? Able to do the work? Good. That looks perfect. Okay, so here's your classwork. It's all in the workbook. It is 2 different sections. 1 through 10, 1 through 5, 9, and 10. Okay, 9 and 10 for both of these, both of them are a little tricky. I expect to have to go over them tomorrow, but I want you to work on it until as much as you can, get as far as you can. And I think today, actually this class is dealing with the study stations pretty well. So not every class is using those spaces productively. So if you want to move over here to the tables, you can do that with someone you work with. If you're not being productive, I'm going to send you back to your seats. It's just basic. If you need room, that's what that's for. It's not a little hideout. But you got to remember it. All right. Forgot to say subscribe, so I'll just say subscribe. 250 gets Kit Kat. Oh.